Hello and welcome to another edition of the Clean Slate Theme Development Tutorial Series, and my name is Adam. Today we are going to be talking about variables in Clean Slate. So, what is a variable? A variable is a place or tag that can hold different values at different times. It is a container for a value. So basically this means you can set a variable, you can place a variable in one of your HTML files in your templates, and that is going to be a container for you to insert text into. What does that exactly mean, and what does it look like? Let's switch over here. I've already got Hammer up and running. I've pulled up the brand patterns theme, and I'm on the backpage template here, and I've gone ahead and added this partial down here. It's basically just this lead text right here with some content in it, and I'll give you a quick tour of what that looks like. So here is our partial with the lead callout. I've actually put this inside of this Views Custom Patterns folder because this is something that we're making for a custom for this site that we're going to build. So I put it in this Custom Patterns folder, and all it does here is have a container. It's got a paragraph with some text in it, and it's got a couple of classes. And then on my backpage template, all I've done here is include it via this partial. One of the things that we can do in this theme actually has some utility classes to change the background color of some containers or some wrappers. So for example, if I change this from blue to gold, go back and hit refresh, it's going to change that from blue to gold right there. Now, what if I wanted to change the background color of this in several different spots? For example, I could make this paragraph, instead of having it be set content, I could make it an editable region, and then I could include this partial multiple different times on my various pages, and I could always have it look different because it has a different background color. So the way that we would do that would be to make a variable for the background color, someplace where we can insert a class like this and have that be set in another place. So how do we do that? That is done with the rvar tag. If I go ahead and paste our tag in right here, all that our variable tag is this rvar, and then we're giving it a name. This is the entirety of the tag right here. This acts as a placeholder for us to be able to insert things into. Okay, so that is how you create a variable via a radius tag in CleanSlate. Now, keep in mind, we want to actually do something with this, right? So I'm going to come over here, and remember, right now that the rvar tag exists, there's nothing that we're actually doing with it. It's just kind of outputting like a placeholder in our HTML with no actual content. So if we want to do something with it, we would actually have to use another tag called rsetVar. So here's what that looks like. All this is it's rsetVariable, setVar, and then it's passing it the name of the variable, which we defined right here. This is the name of our variable, right? And then we're passing it a value. So for example, in this theme, there is some CSS that will turn the text or background color black by that class. So if I go over to our page and hit refresh, boom, our background color just changed to black from yellow. And just to hammer this home, this is the partials HTML in DevTools, and you'll notice here is our series of classes. We've got the UW gold, the background class, and then where it says U black, that is where our variable is being inserted. So if I go back and change this to something else, just to hammer this home, I'm going to paste in another class we have here. And if you're wondering where all these are coming from, inside the one base SCSS folder over here, there's these color modifiers. This is where all these classes are. They have a number of different classes for colors and whatever. So I'm just going to put in this one right here, and we'll notice that our background color is going to change from that darker black to this lighter gray. And there it is. That is where our variable is being inserted right there. So now that we've covered the basics of var and setVar, I'm going to show you how to actually create a variable that exists inside a radius tag. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you are inside a tag like this that is already r colon something, you can actually create a dynamic variable inside of that radius tag right here, just like this. You need to make sure that you have these curly braces, and you need to have it be a $sign right here and then the name, okay? So in this case, what I've done is I've said, okay, for this file, I have this variable that exists right here, and there's actually also this default value, this default value on our rset_var tag, and that default value is going to be passed into here if no other value has been set. All right, so when we go back over here and refresh our page, even though this is UW gold, this U black is actually overriding our gold background right here because it's the default value that's being passed into the variable. Now that we have this set up here and we have our dynamic variable right here, what we can do is we can actually go back to our back page and set this variable again, and you'll notice I've set a different color to be output back into our lead callout right here. So if I go back to our page and hit refresh, you'll notice here that the output that it's outputting is this UPMS warm gray 11, and that is what's being output right here. So what's happening is this value is going into the lead callout, and it is being inserted into here. It is overriding the default, and then it's being inserted into the variable right here. So this is a good thing to do if you are creating a partial that you think might be used in different places and you need a default value for it. You can set something like this and have this default value with this dynamic value right here. And then when you actually use it, you can set it just like we have normally. So now that we've talked a little bit about var and set var, I want to talk a little bit about how to name variables right here. You might see variables like w lead classes, and it's actually a best practice to not have dashes in our variable names, because this could be interpreted by the system as like a mathematical minus sign. So whenever you're creating variables, make sure you use underscores, and if you don't want to use underscores, you can actually use camelCase. So you could have it something like that. But the main point here is don't use spaces, don't use dashes, stick to kind of the camelCase and underscores when you're naming things. So you may remember in a previous video we looked at blogs, and there's actually some rset_var code here and some variables already in this blog engine. And I kind of skipped over that, saying that we would cover that later, and guess what? The later is now. So right here we are essentially we're saying, okay, unless this is defined elsewhere, set the number of blog posts to show on our blog engine page to be 10. All right, so if this was called in, if this whole bit of code was called in via another partial, we could change that to a different value. Now, since it's being called right here, right directly in the blog index template, we could probably safely just say the value could be 10, but since this is distributed in various ways, people do different things, we've set that to be able to be dynamic if people want it. Also, you'll notice a number of dynamic variables down here, right? So we have limit, page, tags, tags op, year, month, day, etc. So these are all variables, and in the case of the blog engine, if you remember, we can actually go back over to our Statler page here. We can filter by tags in the URL. So what we're actually doing here is we're saying our tags right here, we're passing the tags value, this tags value, a dynamic variable, and we're getting that right here through this URL. Okay, so I hit enter, and it's going to return these two blog posts. Similarly, if on our main page we have 10 or more blog posts here, we can actually also pass this in the limit, and it will return our limit of 2 right here. I just wanted to point that out. You can set variables inside of our colon tags just like this. You can have variables that are applied to add classes to your page. You can set variables in front of partials to make them do different things for different places in your site. There's the once you get a grasp on how variables work, and specifically later looping and custom page data and custom site data, you're going to really start to see how variables can be very helpful when creating CleanSlate themes. So if you want to look at the documentation for variables, I would suggest going to How-Tos and Tips, Theme Development, the tag documentation, and clicking on both the rvar documentation and the rsetvar documentation. Here we talk about how to use the variables. You can copy the code right from here. You can also check out the setvar and see what we're doing there. As a side note, you can also set a variable in the global scope. So if you don't want to set it individually every time, say you want to have one variable that's something all the time. For example, if you want your masthead to be blue and you have a variable for that, you can set your masthead variable to be blue inside your config.yml file. So I hope that's helpful. In the next video, we're going to talk about looping in CleanSlate, so stay tuned.